Today, we're diving into the 2024 Gophers recruiting class. We've got them signed on the dotted line. Who's coming to Dinkytown? What to know about them? Who could make immediate impact? And then a basketball doubleheader today.
Hey,
You are Locked On Golden Gophers.
No matter what we're going to do here, we're just going to keep rowing.
Your daily podcast on the Minnesota Golden Gophers.
However it turns out, we're just going to keep rowing.
Part of the Locked On Podcast Network. Your team every day.
We're just going to keep rowing, and keep rowing.
You're listening to Locked On Golden Gophers, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. My name is Kane Rob, host of the podcast, former collegiate football video coordinator and recruiting assistant, here to talk Golden Gophers with you each and every day of the week, Monday through Friday. And we've got to talk about National Signing Day and getting the Gophers to sign on the dotted line, because there are a whole bunch of players coming to Dinkytown sooner than later, 15 coming as early enrollees. We're going to talk about the players we think have the most immediate impact, the players that had high praise from Coach Fleck yesterday in the presser, and a couple sleepers in the class as well. But before we get to that, we have to talk about, is this Coach Fleck's best class yet? The best one in his tenure, the best of the past, 8 recruiting classes now? We're going to dive in deep on that one, and that's what we're going to talk about today. So be sure to hit subscribe over on YouTube so you do not miss any of your daily Gopher content. And on top of that, be sure to follow wherever you get the podcast at Locked On Golden Gophers and leave a 5-star review so others can find the show. But I want to know which player are you most excited about? Drop it down in the comments over on YouTube. Let me know why you're most excited, or who you think could make an impact right away as we dive into today's breakdown of the 2024 class. But is it the best class Coach Fleck has had? I think it could be up there, but many people might be upset about losing Jide Abasiri or Brady Pretzloff, but even with those departures, this class holds its own and it has something special about it. It is still, by rankings, it has Minnesota's 2 of their top 5 recruits in program history when it comes to the recruiting rankings. Both Coy Parrish and Nathan Roy are 2 of the 5 highest in program history when it comes to the grades over by 247. That's a big deal, and depending on which recruiting service you're looking at, they still have very highly ranked players, especially with those 2 in Coy Parrish and Nathan Roy. But then you look at it by accolades. It has 3 top players of the entire state. The best player in Minnesota, the best player in North Dakota, and the best player in Wisconsin are all coming to Dinkytown. And even beyond that, it has 4 All-American invitees when it comes to the All-American senior game for high school football. And that is Brett Carroll, that is Nathan Roy, that is Coy Parrish, and that is Riley Sunrum. So there is a lot of accolades, a lot of rewards, a lot of big time achievements coming in from this class. Now, on top of that, it is very highly rated when it comes to production and athleticism. You're talking about Coy Parrish, who was one of the top 5 freaks lists when it comes to high school recruits in the country, and being the most freakish athletes in the entire country. Of so many high schools out there, of so many recruits out there, Coy Parrish made the top 5. So him by himself is already bringing a ton of athleticism to this class. But then you talk about Drake Lindsay, who had nearly 4,000 yards passing this past season, was a state champion, had 91 touchdowns to 7 interceptions over his career. And on top of that, you go into Brett Carroll, who's been a shot put champion, wrestling champion, multiple players on this roster, Jalen Smith, Afame Ijaboy, and others have cracked a sub 11 second 100-meter dash, meaning they bring a lot of speed to this team. You got Simon Seidel, who is a hockey athlete as well, and so much more. This class has a lot of spark to it. It has a lot of unique things to it. And most of all, we've also brought in high-level transfer production in the quarterback room with Max Brosmer, and bringing in a quality backup in Logan Fife. You've got C.A. Bangura, who's bringing a ton of production from the MAC level as a running back. You've got defensive end coming in from Central Michigan, Quindario, who is going to bring some oomph to this defensive line and bringing some experience as well. There is a lot to like when it comes to this class. But is it the best class Coach Fleck has had? It's hard to say right now. If I had to go with my gut, I would say by the outside. But by what we measure before anybody touches the field, then yes, it is, because you have those 2 top 5 players. You have multiple All-Americans and all of that. But when it comes to the production on the field, it's going to be tough to say because we still haven't even been able to see what the 2023 class can fully bring. Now, this class has it all, and it's very diverse, and I definitely think it could be the best for Coach Fleck, but I think it's the best is still yet to come from a lot of talented players from last year's class as well. You talk about Darius Taylor and Greg Johnson. You can see that they got on the field early, and I believe they will be studs in the long run. But athletically, the most intriguing players from that 23 class are still developing and could be impactful players in the next season or beyond. Guys like Kenrick Lanier, who absolutely showed out in spring ball and showed up in fall camp and was working his ways into the 2s. He could be working his way into the 1s. Zaquan Bryan, who is an athlete that can play on both sides of the ball, got his first snaps in that Wisconsin game and held his own, especially on the cornerback position, and I think he'll look to continue to push, continue to grind, and put his name into the conversation. Carter Menz, who came in a little slight, but he has a lot of upside, and the coaches are extremely excited about him as a defensive end. You got Theron Randall and Martin Wusu, both of them being interior defensive linemen, both of them who could have high upside in the run stopping and maybe creating that pressure on the interior, but just need a little bit of time to develop and get that seasoning. Those are all players that could absolutely break through in the 2023 class and have a ton of upside for years to come. But the truth is that beyond rankings numbers, Minnesota has done great at finding players that fit the system and grow and develop into major impact players who get it, who understand their role, who understand how to take it to the next level, or when I contribute in this manner, it gets me on the field. And if I can do this at an elite level, I will see more time and I will be able to contribute to my team. Guys that grind, guys that work, guys that claw for opportunities. Minnesota has been good at bringing those in, and personally, I expect this 2024 class to bring that same mentality at a very rapid pace, getting it done quickly. I think there could be many players in this class that see some reps, bring some depth to this team, but I think I also see potentially 2 to 4 guys that could click if they click right away, if they grasp it quickly, and if they bust their tails to work and never settle, they could push themselves into the fight for starting opportunities at some point in 2024. You want to talk about who those are? We're going to talk about those impact players. We're going to talk about high-praised players from yesterday's presser and the sleepers of the class coming up next. First, I got to talk to you about our friends over at LinkedIn Jobs, because LinkedIn Jobs is the place to be when it comes to making a hire for your small business, because they have many top-tiered candidates on there that you can get on an interview. Easy said and quickly done. Now, LinkedIn Jobs has all the tools to help you find the right professionals for your team faster and for free. And it's not just another job board. LinkedIn has a vast network of more than 1 billion professionals, which makes it the best place to hire. Hiring is easy when you have so many quality candidates. So easy, in fact, that 86% of small businesses get a qualified candidate within 24 hours. Now, LinkedIn knows that small businesses, you're wearing so many hats. You're doing the hiring, you're doing contracts, you're doing whatever it is in your business. You got more than one role and you might not have the time to resource it. Well, they've got you covered over there. Thankfully, LinkedIn is super intuitive, quick, and easy. And on top of that, they even just launched a feature that helps you write job descriptions, making the process even easier and quicker. So post about your job for free over at linkedin.com/lockedoncollege. That's linkedin.com/lockedoncollege. Terms and conditions apply, but you can post about your job for free today. All right, Gophers fans, let's talk about this class. Let's talk about what we learned in the presser announcing this class and some of the players in it, and also who could be immediate impact players. That's where we're going to start this thing. So quick and easy. Who do I think could make an impact from the jump? Who could be starters right away? And I'm including the transfers in here because they're part of the class. Now, Ethan Robinson was a player that absolutely is going to put his name in the conversation at starting cornerback position. He's got a lot of upside. He's had some all-conference honors. And you know what? At Bucknell, which is a smaller school, he has balled out, plain and simple. Just like Trayvon Jones a year before him, who had balled out at Elan, and then he comes here, he starts, and he had a big impact, especially in the beginning of the season. But as the season closed, he got back on it as well. Ethan Robinson has that same type of upside, that same type of expertise and experience, and I think he's going to make a case to get on the field right away. Now, with that, I think that Ethan Robinson, Coach Fleck told a story about him yesterday and talked about his parents, great parents, and it was an awesome story to hear when it comes to staying to your word and being truly committed. He said that he wanted to commit when they were out here on their visit while he was visiting through that transfer portal, and he said he really liked it. He wanted to commit here, and his dad said, "You want to commit? You want to commit here?" And he said, "Yes." And he's like, "Then you know where we're supposed to visit next weekend?" And he said, "Yep." And he's like, "Text that coach right now and tell him we're not coming." And he did it. And he said, "Show Coach Fleck." Then he said, "You remember that other place we're supposed to visit after that?" And he said, "Yep." He's like, "Text that person, tell him you are not coming, and show Coach Fleck." Show coach you are truly committed. You want to be here, and this is the decision. Own up and take responsibility for the decision that you're saying you want to make. That's massive. That's massive. And not only just from a football perspective, but just in life. Owning up to your responsibilities, taking your responsibility, and then going forward with that decision and learning from it and growing from it and doing what you said you were going to do. That's a massive lesson. It's a great insight that Coach Fleck gave us. And overall, I'm excited about Ethan Robinson. Then you flip it to another impact transfer we are going to see right away, Max Brosmer, quarterback, University of New Hampshire. Now, he's got some high-level talent. He is produced at the FCS level. He has been a Walter Payton Award finalist, which is the FCS Heisman. He's shown he can get it done. He's shown he can get through the reads. Yesterday on this show, we talked about how he could elevate the passing game and fix the passing game that has struggled here with the Gophers in an efficiency manner. And I truly believe that he can do that with anticipatory throws, with how he reads the field, with multi-reads quickly. I think that he could be what the Gophers need with what they're looking for in this specific system. And I'm excited to see how it all comes together. But the biggest thing that Coach Fleck brought up yesterday is that he wants to have the ability to be a leader of men. He wants to be able to earn that leadership position, but also earn that starting job and earn the respect of his teammates. He wants to come in, and he came in yesterday on signing day. He flew in, and he is ready to work with the team now heading into the bowl game. Now, he can't play in the bowl game, but the fact that he wanted to get here early, he wanted to be able to work with the team. He wanted to do the scout reps with the scout team that they already didn't have enough players to do because of some of the transfers, especially in the quarterback department. Now you got Max Brosmer, your future starting quarterback, coming in, building those relationships, building those bonds, pushing the team so that they can be their best for that upcoming bowl game. And on top of that, creating that relationship development, creating that inspired leadership, and getting to know his guys early and getting to the work early. So that way he can get these practices in, and then when they hit January, he can hit the ground running. I love it. It's massive. He is definitely going to have a high impact because he'll likely be the quarterback one for the Minnesota Golden Gophers, and the work starts early. It starts now. So I'm excited by that. Another impact player is going to be C.A. Bangura. So far I've said all transfer players, but I do have a couple freshmen I do think can produce in the next year. We'll get to them next, but C.A. Bangura is going to make his presence known here in the running back room. I think he's going to be a great relief running back for Darius Taylor. And like I said on yesterday's show, if you want to check it out, I think I have a feeling of how this room could break down with touches. And I think both Bangura and Nubin could see some fluctuation in touches from game to game, depending on the game plan and whatnot, but they will be involved. They'll find a way to get those players on the field with their dynamicism and their athletic ability and their quick downhill. Jordan's more of a patient runner, but CA can hit it with a bang. So overall, I think that CA is going to find a way to contribute in this running back room and pair nicely with Darius Taylor, and he will have an impact on this team. So those three transfers right away, I think they're going to push for starting positions or starting opportunities or a lot of snaps at some point. But looking at the freshmen, who could get in the mix? Nathan Roy is a name that could play either tackle or guard. He is, again, the top player in Wisconsin, brings a lot of upside. He's recovering from an injury, I believe. So we'll see how long that takes. But I believe he is early enrolling as well. So you'll get a chance for him to get on campus, get in with the guys, get in and learn the playbook quickly. And if he is fully healed up and everything like that, it'll be a good opportunity for him to try and get early reps and work like we saw from Greg Johnson the year before. So a lot of upside in that player that I think could bring some opportunity. Mason Carrier, linebacker. We saw the Gophers needed some more depth, some more bodies in that linebacker room. And Mason Carrier's a dog. Now, Mason Carrier, he was out there saying, look, I'm locked into Minnesota. I love Minnesota. I'm here for Minnesota, his family, he's a legacy. And so on top of all that, he said, Mason Carrier, remember the name. Well, Mason Carrier, I appreciate the confidence. I appreciate the swagger, and I will remember the name, and I'm ready for you to ball out and contribute from jump, whether that's special teams and doing everything you can as a freshman, or if that's getting into the opportunity to play as a linebacker and be able to contribute as a freshman. I think Mason Carrier is going to do whatever it takes to contribute for this team and be a part of this Gopher program. Coach Fleck said, he's the next linebacker. I think he truly is. That could come into that huge role and be the next great Gopher linebacker. You've talked about the names we've seen years after years after years. You've seen Jack Gibbons. You've seen Mariano Sotomayor. You see Cody Lindenberg, and Mason Carrier could be up next as well. So I'm excited for that one. I think he can make some sort of impact in his freshman year, even if it comes on special teams. And then Riley Sunrum. Defensive line, interior defensive line. I think he is going to not only potentially have the opportunity to push if he can get in there and, like I said, learn quickly, show that he can grasp those concepts and get stronger within the weight program early here in the spring enrollee period. If he can do that, he could maybe push for opportunity, because right now that interior defensive line needs players beside Devin Eastern. You've got Darnell Jeffries coming back. You've got some young guys, Martin Owusu, Theo Randall, Riley Sunrum. All of them will have the opportunities to push and strive and show they could start. Show they could be contributors, because we rotate a lot of people on that defensive line. So if they can come in and stand out and make an impact, they could find ways to get on the field. Now, another position to consider is the tight ends, because you've got Tristyn Spann-Ford leaving. I believe Nick Caleb is leaving. So you've got two tight ends in this class, and Julian Johnson, Jacob Simpson. You've also got two tight ends from last class, and Sam Peters and Pierce Walsh. And aside from Jamison Gears, I believe most of the tight end snaps are open and available. So who can step up and put their name into the conversation? That's an impact position that I don't know how to read quite yet, but there could be some opportunities for young players. Now, players that received high praise from Coach PJ Fleck yesterday in the presser, Drake Lindsey, big upside. I'd asked Coach Fleck how important it is for them bringing in the experienced quarterbacks of Logan Fife and Max Brosmer, how much that can help Drake Lindsey in his growth in year one as a freshman. And he talked about that. You can see that over on my Twitter at Gophers Kane Rob, but he had a high praise for Drake Lindsey and what he's done on the field, but also his commitment to the program and how it never wavered. On top of that, you've got Samuel Madu, who Coach Fleck mentioned is just such a freak athlete, has played in basketball, and he's been an elite producer there. I believe he's been a track athlete. He's a good corner. He has a great relationship with Nick Monroe, the corners coach. He comes from a great school in Iona Prep. And so Samuel Madu got a lot of praise, especially with his athleticism. We'll see how quickly he can get involved, or also if he'll take that redshirt year and then be able to absolutely make an impact next season with that corner depth. And then Fame Ijiboy, a running back from Pennsylvania. Coach Fleck talked about how excited he was about the actual measurables and the actual, not statistics, but basically testing that he put out there when it comes to 40 time, when it comes to long jump and reach and all of that. They got it actually tested out, and he put up some elite numbers for a high schooler. And he was glad that the other coaches in the country, they missed some of those details, because they think Ijiboy can definitely play an impact potentially in his freshman year if needed, but also in the long term, he could be a great player for this Gophers team. And he's already built almost 200 pounds, brings a ton of speed, and he looks like he can play in the Big Ten right away. So definitely some high praise for him. And then lastly, I want to talk about the sleepers of this class. 3 players that I think could be massive sleepers in this class and have long-term upside. Jalen Smith, wide receiver from, I believe, Mankato, and Coach Fleck talked about he just has it. He has that factor, smooth route running, can separate, and even though it could take, he said he didn't get a ton of production in high school, but you got to look beyond that when it comes to players like him, because you can just see that they have it and they have those special qualities. And even though he might have only had about 500 plus yards as a freshman, or not a freshman, a high schooler, his coaches didn't really necessarily maybe ask that of him, or they didn't have the opportunities to get him all the touches and things like that, but he contributed where he could. He definitely continued to show those unique traits on the film, and they're very excited to see what he can do in this wide receiver room for the Gophers long term. Now, one of my favorite commits is Brett Carroll. I think he is a very intellectual offensive lineman. He gets it. He understands. He has internal drive. I believe he could be an NFL player in the future. He has been a state champion in shot put, a state champion in wrestling. He has brought a ton of stability to his offense in high school as a football player. And on top of that, he just gets it when it comes to field IQ and understanding things. And if you have an offensive lineman, which I believe Brett Carroll will be coming here to play center, that gets it and can make those connections quickly and understand it and grasp it, I think Brett Carroll could be making some noise for the Gophers sooner than later. Now, it's always hard to tell if offensive linemen can get in to start right away, just because that is the hardest position, with the trenches being so massive when it comes to Power 5 schools. So we'll see how he can contribute. But even if it takes a year or so, Brett Carroll is going to be a name you definitely want to watch. And then finally, Zahir Rayner. I think he is going to be a dude. He has a lot of internal motivation. He brings the hits. He brings the pain. He brings the licks. He's playing safety. He is very inspired by Antoine Winfield Jr. It's his favorite player. He thinks he can play like him, play style-wise as well. And I think Zahir Rayner brings a little bit of depth and versatility to him, because he could play that Sam linebacker position that the Gophers like to play with a more safety nickelback type corner. I think that he could fit that role at times too, which gives him versatility to mix up the looks on defense long term. So those three players I would call the sleepers of this class. I'm very intrigued by it, and I'm sure we'll talk more about this class in this offseason throughout. So be sure to hit subscribe so you don't miss any of those conversations. But to wrap this one up, we got to talk about the Gophers doubleheader of basketball today coming up next. First, I want to talk to you about our friends over at FanDuel, because right now new customers get a deal of $150 in bonus bets with any $5 winning moneyline bet. That's $150 if your team wins. Plain and simple. So you go out, you look at this NFL schedule, you look at who has the most lock of a winnable game. Think about it in that like survivor mode of NFL teams that people do at the beginning of the year, where you have to pick one team, and as long as they don't lose, you move to the next round. Well, think of it like that, except for you only have to do it one time. Pick the automatic winner that you know and put a $5 bet on them, and you are getting $150 in bonus bets. And while you're over at FanDuel, you can take a look at their other awesome availabilities on the app, including spreads, player props, over-unders, and so much more. There's such a wide range of betting options that you can always be sure to find the best deal. So visit FanDuel.com/lockedon. Again, that's FanDuel.com/lockedon to take advantage of their new customers bet, where if you win a $5 money line bet or more, you can get $150 in bonus bets. All right, we're going to go through this basketball stuff real quick, but we have a doubleheader coming up for the Gophers basketball teams today on the 21st of December. We're going to start off with the women's basketball team. They're taking on Lindenwood. Now, this is a team that Minnesota should absolutely trounce, run off the court, and then some. They're currently ranked 316th in the net rankings in Lindenwood, and the Minnesota is ranked 42nd. Now, I still don't see how they're dropping when they're out here winning games, but the disrespect and the helmet scouting or the court scouting or whatever you want to call it is happening in full force. This women's basketball team is better than 42nd in the country, and they're going to get out there and continue to prove it. But I think they're going to run Lindenwood off the court. On top of that, it's quite a difference from their next opponent after that, Iowa, who is ranked net number 6 in the rankings, and Minnesota will play them on the road in December 30th. Now, luckily, we can use this game as more of a tune-up, but also expand the bench a bit and keep your players fresh. But Minnesota will have a 9-day break from today to the 30th in order to prep for Iowa, on top of enjoying the holidays and whatnot. But you have that 9 days to really break down a very tough opponent. And if you give this coach, You give Coach Plitzowite the ability to really dive in and game plan 9 days worth for the Iowa Hawkeyes. I think this Gophers team is going to give the Iowa Hawkeyes a run for their money. I think they're going to give them a real challenge. I think they're going to give them a tough game. Being the best defensive team in the Big Ten, they're going to show that, and I think they're going to have something for Caitlin Clark and crew. Now, I would expect a heavy defensive approach from Minnesota, and Minnesota to look to get Amaya Battle attacking and creating. Because when Amaya Battle is attacking and looking aggressive as a scorer, she also opens up opportunities for their shooters, or in the pick and roll game with Sophie Hart. She can be a great distributor, but you have to prove that you can attack the rim and be a scorer, so that way they have to respect you in that department, and then it opens up things for her teammates. So I think that's going to be a big emphasis. Now, it could be an emphasis in the Lindenwood game, but I think big time in the Iowa game. So we'll see how they use this game as a potential warm-up to open up that aggressiveness on the scoring front for Amaya Battle, and also working the ball into Sophie Hart and letting it work inside to outside for the wide open shooters. I think that is going to be big time. But the screen and roll game between Amaya Battle and Sophie Hart, I will be interested to see if that gets more incorporated in these next couple matchups. Now, the biggest thing for the Gophers in these games, especially versus Iowa, is going to be quick ball movement, knocking down your threes when they present themselves with Mallory Heyer, with Mara Braun, with Grace Groholski. Those elements will be key versus Iowa in order to win. The priorities in that game are getting Amaya Battle aggressive as a scorer to open up creative lanes for her, getting Mara ISO creation looks and good looks, quick looks, clean looks. She's got to knock them down in this one, and then suffocating defense. Defense is number one priority in that game when it comes to playing Iowa. So we'll see if the Gophers women's basketball team can continue to shock the world and play their next ranked opponent and play them a little bit closer, but maybe even upset them on the road. We'll see what happens, and we'll have you covered here at Locked On Golden Gophers. But let's flip it over to the men's side of things. The Gophers' next two opponents are Ball State, which is 223rd in the net rankings, and Maine, which is 197th. So both of those games should be significant wins and should be games that Minnesota can win convincingly, while also tuning up for Big Ten play, which will follow soon after. Now, Minnesota is currently 96th in the net rankings, and that currently sits at 11th of the 14 teams in the Big Ten. So there's a lot left to prove, especially when you've got Nebraska sitting at 49th, whom the Gophers have beaten. So you've shown you can move forward, move even higher within those net rankings, and you can compete with the teams that are above you. But right now, it is far better than the mid-200s that we saw from the Gophers team last year. Now, when looking at the ceiling of this team, I still am unsure of what that looks like, but they will keep on responding. And that's the biggest thing for this young team, is how they continue to adjust through the adversity and respond in ways that present themselves. So overall, I think the defense, again, is the key for the Gophers, and that is the separator for how good this team can be in how they compete on a nightly basis. Defense is priority numero uno. If you can play elite defense, you can keep yourselves in the games with any of the teams in the Big Ten. Honestly, I don't anticipate a lot of playing time for Dawson Garcia in these next two non-conference matchups until we hit Big Ten play. That's just me personally. I don't think we'll see too much from him. I think they're going to make sure he gets to 100%, 110% before they hit those Big Ten conference games where everything becomes a grind on a nightly basis. Now, in his wake, how can you use his absence to generate growth and success with the other pieces on this team? Shot creation and execution from Cam Christie, Josh Ola-Joseph, and Pharrell Payne is massive for this team's upside. If you can get them more confident in these next two games and continue to get them looks and continue to get them more aggressive and more assertive in their scoring creation, I think it will be huge for this team once Dawson Garcia is able to come back. Now, on top of that, you've got a consistent spark plug in scoring and energy guys on your bench in Parker Fox, in Michael Mitchell Jr., and Isaiah Enan. When those three are on and when those three are contributing, just even in the slightest manner, depending on the game to game, when they can put up 14 points, 10 points, 12 points, but also fire the team up energy-wise, slapping the floor mentality, getting the steals, creating massive dunks to hype up the team. When you get that energy flowing, this team is different. This team can compete, and that is what takes this team From mediocre to good to even having moments of great is when they get fired up. And you saw it with the barn rocking in that Nebraska matchup and how fired up this team was. And when they were fired up and we were playing with that confidence and that swagger, they were a team that could compete with the best of them. Now they have to find ways to turn that motivation internally. And I think guys like Mike Mitchell Jr. and like Parker Fox are going to bring that fire on the road. Those are the guys that you look to spark your team and motivate them with a big dunk, with a big steal, with a knockdown three, and having the swagger about them, slap the floor mentality and keep it going. That spark is going to be massive for the team. Defense and that spark play. Now, those two elements, like I said, are massive for the team. Two big things that this team will need once Dawson Garcia returns and once Pharrell Payne is fully healthy is having that shot creation and execution from the young players and the consistent spark plug and energy from those bench guys. But the big factor so far for the Gophers basketball team has been Elijah Hawkins. He's been a key player for this team, and he looks more under control, showing leadership more and more on a game-to-game basis. Definitely showing that level of play he brought to Howard and how he got them to the tournament. It's starting to make its way here with the Gophers as well. Love to see that. Now, these elements, plus eventually when their best defender of Braden Carrington is back, are major factors to the long-term success of this team. I'm cautiously optimistic about this Gophers basketball team, and I think they can get around 8 to 9 Big Ten wins. I truly do. And if they pull that off, you're looking at a team that's about 18 wins or so and above 500. Now, last year, that type of play, that type of record had you right around the tournament. So the Gophers still can make some noise here in the Big Ten. And even though there's occasional frustrations with this team, the hope is creeping up. And we're going to learn quickly if that's rightfully so or if it's foolish. But in January, I am going to see if that growth is there, if that opportunity is there for them to make some noise in the Big Ten. We're going to learn sooner than later in January, and I look forward to it. We'll cover it for you here at Locked On Golden Gophers. That's going to do it for us here on the show. Roll the boat, Sky, you might go Gophers, and as always, don't forget to subscribe.